schooling on a reservation, at that time they had these little red schoolhouses that you hear a story about. And that's what we had, all grades in one building. And of course, the students' body wasn't big, so that one teacher did teach all grades, from first to whatever. And I remember one of my teachers was my favorite, was Kate Peterson. She was of Gan Valley. And I used to have good handwriting because at that time they used the Palmer method handwriting. So, then we'd have competitions in handwriting and stuff. And I would win pins and everything else. But to make a long story short, but then when I finished grade school, there was no high school on the reservation. So my father made arrangements for me to go to Flandreau Indian School, which is almost on the Minnesota border, north of Sioux Falls. And here again, you must remember that was the primitive days, so transportation was tough. They had the first cars, four-cylinder engines, Model Ts, and everybody didn't have cars. So my dad had to find somebody to transport us. And I went to school at Flandreau for 4 years, from 1931 to 1935. I graduated. And, that was a school where you went to school half a day and the worst, you learned a trade. And I learned my trade as a carpenter. And so then I finished high school at Flandreau. And so then I want to tell you a story. We had to write a paper. And the theme was, where will you be 20 or 30 years from now? And if they would have told me, so I told them my story was, I'm going home, I'm going to take care of my parents, and that same thing. But if anybody would say, in 30 years you're going to be working for governors, I would say that is a dream, But that's exactly what happened. But after high school, of course, it was jobs were scarce then, and so now see, that was in the 30s. Now you folks don't know what drought is. That dirty 30s was the most devastating period in the history of the United States. And when you shade your eyes, looked up into the sun, you can see grasshoppers circling in the air. And Mormon crickets, there's a great big red grasshopper. It didn't fly, they'd jump. And so it was a tough time, really, for the people. And so the government bought up the farmers' cattle, and because everybody was in the same boat, whether it was white or Indian. And so they bought up these cattle. What they did was they were going to issue them to the Indian families so they could keep them and raise some cattle in the future. And on the left shoulder of the cows, there was ERA on there. And so the government watched on them and said, we heard those cattle on foot. And when they came to one family, here they butchered one. And the Indian agent said, you can't do this. And the guy said, there's an ERA on the shoulder, is eat them right away. So he left. Then my life changed because I finished the high school and jobs. But then Franklin Roosevelt initiated these alphabetical work programs. And like the WPA, Work Projects Administration, and Civilian Conservation Corps. I got this completely filmed for the State Historical Society because what I did is when I came back, I worked on these alphabetical programs. These were make-work projects, but they were good for the reservation because the first project was to build dams to, in the future, to hold water and probably good for the rancher. And but I tell my kids, I must have been tough because we had good horses, good work teams, and the team, the general team is the Grays. That's where we get the Tashoka. And the names was Ben and Snip, but they were gentle, real gentle horses. And then they